If your business deals with production, or which means you create your products within internally in the company, then it means you most likely would need raw materials. And raw materials on 390 has been built as a module for you to manage all of these items. All right, so we want to help you track all of your ingredients, all of your inputs and components used in production. We have a production module within 390, which a customer reached out and we built specifically for that customer because they wanted to track all of their wastage. And to track wastage, it means you need to list all of your raw materials. Then we can use these raw materials in the production module. And with every output, we'll be able to help you calculate all of your consumptions and what is left and the financial implication of all of that. However, this video is exclusively for adding just raw materials. Production would be in another video entirely, possibly linked to this video. All right, so now we want to look at what raw materials are on 390. And raw materials in this case are the inputs behind your finished products. All right, these are the items that you purchase from your suppliers directly and are used during your production to make your final produce. Okay, these are not supplies, these are not assets, these are raw materials, plainly defined. Okay, so the examples of these, if you're a bakery, are flour, your eggs, your packaging, these are raw materials, your skincare, your essential oils, your jar, your labels, your packs, all of these things are your raw materials. And if it's furniture, your wood, your glue, your screws, depending on your type of business, we know, and you produce, then you definitely would have raw materials. Okay, so without raw materials, without you tracking your raw materials, you most likely are just guessing how much you buy, when it is used. You quickly just do some guesswork to estimate how much raw materials you should have left, how many were used in each production batch, etc. 390 is helping you structure the entire process, and raw materials are really crucial in all of this setup. Okay, so we want to know what it costs to produce a single unit, and that's why we define them here. So we want to also make sure that there are to prevent stockouts and the wastage, as I mentioned, and so that when a new batch comes from your suppliers, you can easily track all of those items here within 390. Okay, so now let's jump into the video on the section of adding raw materials. Okay, raw materials, if you don't have access to it, or to start with, just go to your app store, then search for raw materials, because this is not going to be there by default. Then when you click on that, you can give every and anyone that most likely would have access to your raw materials. So raw materials in this case is, the way it works is you give them access, then somebody can go there, then add and update and all of that. So within your production, so it's different from the others because anybody that has access to your raw materials, we should be able to carry, and that should be under your inventory. Okay, so under inventory, we've not gotten to the inventory part, so we'll come back to that. So you see the last one here, it has this dot, 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 so just indicates that this is still in production. So if I click on raw materials, it should bring me to the page to handle the raw materials. Okay, so now there's a help section that will help you with understanding how raw materials work word for word. And if you go to the settings here, you can define all of the units of your raw materials as well. So let's just define a few ones. So because from our definition here, we say raw materials are flour, eggs. So most of them might be in kg and in pieces and in packs. So let's create those three things. Let's say packs, then let's say the other one is kg. And let's say the other one might be even liters because it might come in that aspect as well. Then we already use packs, but let me still use pieces so that we can indicate those things. So we've created the units, so we can go to the categories, and categories as we have here, I didn't put any examples here, but we could say maybe the categories could be, let's say bottles, and let's use another one and say maybe this ones are stickers. Even though this is an actual raw material, we know they can have different types of stickers. Then maybe the next one could be, let me think, we could just leave those ones for now so I don't run out of time. So now we can proceed to creating the actual raw materials. So if I click on the first one, the same familiar interface comes up. If you've added products and services, we use the same interface all through. So let's say the first raw materials based on our definition here is flour. And if I do flour, the category, if you have anything, okay, we don't have anything in that category, so I'm going to leave it empty. Okay. And let me say the price of flour, depending on your unit of measurement. So let's say 1750 for maybe 1 kg. I'm not sure the pricing, so I'm just going to give that a rough idea. So I'll click on the add another so that when I click add raw material, this whole pop-up will stay. So if I do add material, it will add that, and you can see it in the back that it's showing somewhere there. So I can still continue adding the next one. So let's say the next one in this case would be essential, or let me use jars. Let me just say jar. And category for this can be bottle. Let's say jar 1 or jar type 1, depending on the different types of jars you have. And let's say the price of this is 560 for one, and unit is pieces. Okay, maybe I should just leave this. Let me see. Glue. Okay, let me just leave that. And the last one, let me call that glue. And maybe I'll leave this as, okay, there's no category defined. So let me just leave this as 300 for one. And unit of measurements can be, maybe glues can be in packs. So I can leave that 3000. All right. And once I'm done, I can add raw material. Okay. So this is the interface of the raw material as well. Then I can add additional information to that particular raw material for internal usage for your teams to be able to see even additional information of that, maybe the composition, maybe even the ingredients that are in that, all of that can be here. So variants in this case, there's no need for variants in raw materials, so we'll just explore that, and that would most likely be removed. And so if I go back to all, I'll see all of them here. This is just the point where we define all of the raw materials. Raw materials can be used when we move to the purchase orders section. So under purchase orders, where you create one, you should be able to add all of the raw materials from here. You can see when you're adding a purchase order, it's either a supply or raw material. And all of these ones that we've added are here. Then you can say, okay, maybe we need about 10 pieces of that and all of that. So when we get to raw material, to purchase orders, I would mention that. Then it also comes in the inventory, where we get an inventory video where you can just add those raw materials to different inventory locations. Most likely even the production location, not the inventory. So if it's in a production location or an actual inventory location, you can define all of those there as well. So we'll jump to those when we get to those videos.